Good morning, everybody. Bit bright in here, sorry about that, but just to go over a couple more of these bullet points around policy areas, and these are a couple of bullet points I'm really passionate about. I mean, all of them are my work and the work of other New Zealand First MPs and party members, but there are some of them that, if you had a priority list, there are some that my work on inquiries and on select committees and select committee around particular issues have shown me that the issues that are happening right now must be addressed as quickly as possible, and there are places that this government is not going, so that's why some things really are higher on my priority list than others, let's say. Now, the three bullet points I want to talk about today are strengthening school entry assessment tools and practices that teachers and school leaders use to identify those students most at risk in literacy and numeracy. Work with the sector to establish a pilot program in partnership with the early childhood education sector, initially in a defined area, for the collection and analysis of school entry baseline evidence to target staffing and resourcing to meet need, the support or extension, and inform practice, and establish an early intervention staffing component for identified new entrants at risk in literacy and numeracy across all schools, with initial priority being one full-time teaching equivalent for every U1 to U3 school. Now, why I believe those things are really important is that on the dyslexia, and in those policy statements we've mentioned numeracy and literacy, but actually what my time on the select committee and the inquiry into dyslexia, dyspraxia and children on the autism spectrum has proven to me is that we need to widen those screening tools for the assessment of school entry data to clearly identify, without cost to the parental body, to clearly identify the educational challenges of children as they come into the school system, and then to look at funding the support that they need on an equity basis. So let's say, for example, that there are screening tools that when a child is 5 or 6 and continually through the school system, that can be used to identify if they might have the educational challenge of dyslexia. And if they have the educational challenge of dyslexia, if it shows up on the little screening tool, then that should highlight that they need to go on for a more in-depth assessment. Find out what it is that they need, what tools is it, what resources is it, what supports do they need to be able to participate and get their best out of the New Zealand education system, rather than what we're finding is students waiting for long periods of time before it's identified that in this particular case they may have dyslexia. By that time a sense of failure has arisen, and so schooling has become more and more of a challenge, and now you've actually got to build the confidence of the student, whereas if we can identify much earlier and put the supports in place, while there's a recognised learning difference there, it doesn't have to become this enormous barrier and sort of lack of self-confidence that it becomes at the moment. And that's the same for every single special need that our children would go into our schools with. I truly believe that we have the capacity to provide support for our children on an equitable basis. What is it that child needs to be the best they can be, no matter where they are in the country, no matter what it is that their challenge is. But for me, that would include schools like Salisbury. That would include places where schools where parents can say the best thing for my child is a full sort of boarding environment, whether that be co-ed, whether that be single-sex environment. So for me, I think that we need to, and this is what this policy is around, is to make sure we identify a lot earlier. It shouldn't matter what the parental income of the parents are when we identify children who have learning difficulties or require, and that includes gifted and talented children. So there's lots of learning difficulties or learning extensions. Every special need is different in its own right. And we need to identify earlier, fund on an equitable basis so that those young people can be the best they can be inside an education system that actually has a more holistic understanding of success. So those are those three bullet points, and the last bullet point is particularly for small rural schools who find it very, very difficult to get any sort of teacher aid support because they're in isolated areas. So we wanted to put in there a very practical provision so that they could fund another full-time teaching equivalent inside their school to support the young people that are in rural and isolated areas. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.